It's like a shark, NATO, except with poop.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States. Thailand.
There's some whores in this house.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It is Wednesday, it's hump day, it's the middle of the week, and we got a great show for you all today. So we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to talk about Donald Trump's plans for after January 20th, which, again, if you ask Donald Trump, he's like, I'm going to be in the White House. I'm going to stay in the White House. He's not. He's got to go somewhere. So where is he going to go? Well, can't go to New York because he doesn't really like New York, and New York really doesn't like him. So where's he going to go? Where is he going to go? I have an interesting story on that. Fun times. Then we're going to get into more serious stuff. We have a Republican congressman that is literally saying, hey, you know what we should do? We should suspend the Constitution, habeas corpus, and then, invoke the Insurrection Act and go after our political enemies. Serious stuff. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. So there's that. All right. We have also got some serious stuff as well. We got like a whole bunch of coronavirus related stuff coming through here. We have, of course, revealed emails talking about herd immunity, disastrous. Let's see. We also have Joe Biden on a cabinet pick here. And then Ivanka and Kellyanne Conway, involved in messing with CDC guidelines. Oh, here we go again. So there's that. All right. Anyway, that said, let's dive into it. Let's start out with, actually, before we do, please like and share the stream. Very helpful that you do so. Helps us out. It's wonderful that you do. You can also share it, of course, over on Twitch, where we're also co-streaming, all that wonderful stuff. All right, so let's do it. Let's dive in. Fun times. All right. With just over a month before Donald Trump is officially out on his ass, which, means he's got to go. He's got to be out of the White House by January 20th. That's when, of course, Joe Biden, after a very lengthy, I'm assuming, fumigation process, Joe Biden will be moving into the White House. But that means Donald Trump's got to go somewhere. He's got to have somewhere to go. Well, with New York apparently off the list because New Yorkers don't want the Trumps, and his daughter and son-in-law, Ivanka and Jared Kushner, purchasing a property in the Billionaire's Bunker. That's in Florida, Indian Creek Island. It looks as though the Trump family appears to be heading down to Florida. You know, to America's retirement community. Lucky for Donald, he already has some real estate there. Mar-a-Lago. Interesting. So now, there seems to be a little bit of a problem with that. Apparently his neighbors, like the American people, don't actually want him back. Fascinating. Now, the Washington Post is reporting that Trump's Mar-a-Lago neighbors sent a letter to the town of Palm Beach and the Secret Service on Tuesday demanding that the town notify Trump that he can no longer reside in Mar-a-Lago. So I guess he can't go home again. Sad baby. All right. Anyway, now, why is that? Why can't he go back to Mar-a-Lago? I mean, that's technically his, right? Well, the neighbors say that he had signed away that right back in 1993 when he converted what was his residence at the time into a private club. Now, why did he do that? Because he was broke. The greatest businessman ever. And yet somehow he keeps going broke. Weird. He's always in need of cash. Very, very strange how that works out. It's almost as if, and hear me out, he's a shitty businessman. Weird. Weird. All right, anyway. So now, in order to get approval for that transformation, in order to get some quick cash, Palm Beach made him sign an agreement that no club member could stay at Mar-a-Lago more than 21 days a year or 7 consecutive days, I'm in trouble. Among other restrictions. Fun. His attorney general at the time promised that, I'm sorry, not attorney general. His attorney at the time promised that Trump would not live at Mar-a-Lago, and now they're getting ready to live at Mar-a-Lago. Which again, fast forward to now, where his neighbors are basically saying that Trump better not think about living at Mar-a-Lago, and saying that if he does, and we don't want this to happen, but if he does, well, it's going to create what they call an embarrassing situation in which a former president of the United States would be ordered to leave as soon as he moves in, which would be 100% unprecedented and hilarious. Oh my God. Embarrassing, of course, for whom? Well, Donald Trump, obviously, because Donald Trump's a clown. However, it might also be embarrassing for people who live there. I mean, just imagine being put on the map, being known as the place, not like, oh, we have such fancy homes and we have such fancy places and it's such a wonderful experience to be here. Instead of being known as that, you're known as the place where the loser Donald Trump gets kicked out of his own place because he violated an agreement he had signed years ago. Decades. Sad. Baby. Pathetic. Wow. All right. Disaster. In fact, here's what one of the neighbors are actually saying. Quote, "There's absolutely no legal theory under which he can use that property as both a residence and a club." This is Glenn Seitz, a nearby Palm Beach homeowner, told the Post. Basically, he's playing a dead hand, which, again, I'm not really surprised when it comes to Donald Trump. He's used to playing a dead hand. Along with the 1993 agreement, the Post reports, Trump deeded development rights to the nonprofit National Trust for Historic Preservation, pledging forever to give up his rights to develop Mar-a-Lago or use it for any purpose other than club use. He must have been super fucking broke when he made that, when he signed that paper. Like, yeah, okay, I'll sign it. Just give me the money. Just give me the money. I'm so broke and fucking desperate that I will sign whatever you put in front of me. Okay, well, there you go. Now you can't do anything. Sad baby. Now, that said, Palm Beach hasn't really been a big enforcer of this rule, to be fair. And actually, they gave Trump special leeway while he served as president and frequently visited the property, but the 1993 deal could end up being a headache for Secret Service, who actually does try to, follow the rules. So now, I wonder, given that information, what this is really about. Is this about violating the rules, which are pretty clear, but not exactly enforced? So really, is it about the rules, or is it about living next to the embarrassment that is the most unpopular president that I think we've seen in modern times? I mean, as well as how toxic the Trump brand really is. Or it could be the fact that he might even be the world's worst neighbor. I could only imagine. But either way, it's pretty hilarious that not even Palm Beach, Florida wants the soon-to-be ex-president back. And I think that says a lot. Hilarious. All right. Moving on. Speaking of people, of course, who do still want him, we've got Republicans saying, hey, you know what we should do? We should completely break the law. Oh, fantastic. So let's do it. I love all the suggestions, by the way. Trump can move in with DeSantis. Or, I heard Alabama wants him. He's too tacky for their homeowners association. Oh, that's great. I love these. These are great. All right. Moving on. A Republican state senator in North Carolina is calling for Donald Trump to basically suspend the Constitution. What? Now, wait. Aren't they actually supposed to believe in the Constitution? Because that seems like rather counter to that. I'm just saying. So let me give you some details. This is from State Senator Bob Steinberg, who called for the president to invoke the Insurrection Act and declare the results of the 2020 election invalid. Copium. Oh, they can't handle it. Complete meltdown. Insane. Sad, baby. All right, more. So now, this is in a Facebook post, because of course it's Facebook, in which paraphrased Air Force Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney. I think I said that guy's name wrong. But here's what he wrote. President Trump must declare a national emergency and should also invoke the Insurrection Act. Why? Dude, he lost, bro. He lost. He lost. Why are you doing this? Why are you continuing to, perpetuate this absolute bullshit narrative of no, we won. And no, inhale that copium. Oh my God, I won. No, he won. We won the election. Joe Biden lost. Joe Biden got 270 electoral votes. I know. Now we gotta wait for January 6th for this to go before Congress to then certify the certification and all this stuff. Come on. There's nobody has paid this much attention to this boring process, because this is the same process that happens. But nobody's been paying as much attention to that stuff now, or as I do now, because of the baby and his constant attacks on the democratic process. Okay. But anyway, let's get more to what this guy was saying, because it gets crazier. In an interview with Raleigh news station WRAL, Steinberg initially said that he was just putting out their options that others say still remain on the table. Oh, are you? And that I'm not actually endorsing the plan. Oh, no. And then later on added, later in the interview, that he would be on board with the idea. So wait, you are endorsing the plan? You're like, well, I just want to put everything on the table. I don't actually endorse doing the Insurrection Act and basically doing a forced takeover of the country. No, of course not. Except that I totally would be. What? Oh, I'm sorry. It makes no sense. These people, they're insane. All right, more. He continues, if that's what needs to be done, if there are people who have been identified as folks who are suspected of high crimes and misdemeanors, who are threatening the very security and foundation of our nation for whatever period of time it takes to round them up, then yes, the projection here is just amazing. Holy crap. Just, it's all over the place. The project, oh yeah, yeah, I mean, they're threatening the security and foundation of our nation by attacking our election laws. No, that's what you're doing. You're attacking the foundation of this country and the very security. Do you not see what's going on here? Yeah, no, of course not. And of course, like a true fascist, the mask just ripping the masks off, right? Which, of course, totally on brand. As Republicans wear masks. Oh, what are you kidding me? No. They're saying, sure, let's suspend habeas corpus and just, round people up that are political enemies. Fascist 101. It's exactly what they're doing. But, of course, there's more. There's always more. During the interview, he also suggested that the Supreme Court refused to hear the two cases brought by pro-Trump attorneys in the hopes of overturning the election. But these Supreme Court justices had rejected the case because of blackmail. Blackmail, guys. Wow. Look, maybe it could be, and just hear me out here, okay? There's a lack of evidence to prove your case. It could be that. Or, it could be like this elaborate blackmail scheme for the highest members of the Supreme Court. Right. Sure. Look, Texas had no standing in one of those cases, but that was brought by Ken Paxton, okay? They should not be telling Pennsylvania how to run their elections. That is not something that they're able to do, okay? There are states' rights here. And it's funny that Republicans seem to only believe in states' rights when it comes to denying people civil rights. And because, look, and here's the thing, right? Say if Pennsylvania was trying to tell Texas how to vote. Like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do, things that discriminate against black people and Hispanics and keep them from voting. Texas would do? Texas would flip out. Oh my God, no. How dare you, Pennsylvania? You tell us how to vote. Not going to happen. And so, look, at the end of the day, the Supreme Court did not take the case because the case made no sense. But here, this is the best part of the interview, right? So now here's what he got into the conspiracies, which is fun. There's something going on here bigger than what anybody is willing to talk about. Steinberg told WRAL, I'm not nuts. So wait. Okay, hold on. I'm not nuts is always a great way to start a sentence. Okay? I'm not black, or no, I'm not racist, but that's what it is. I'm not racist, but I'm not nuts. I'm not a conspiracy theory person. Okay? I don't like them. I don't like conspiracy theories at all. This is him saying this. Okay? But something is going on here that's bigger than meets the eye. Oh, really? Yeah, you know what? That sounds like something a conspiracy theorist would say. Weird. No, this guy, this douche is a senator. He is in power. He is in elected office, my friends. You couldn't do better in North Carolina than elect this guy? I know. We got crazies in Michigan. To be fair, okay. Sure. But really, the entire Republican Party at this point is conspiracy-driven reactionary movement. I mean, you still have the upper crust, the old guard, the establishment, members like Mitch McConnell. Okay, but still, most of the new Republicans now are conspiracy theorists because that's basically the base. Let me give you a good example, right? I just read an article earlier today where there was a QAnon account on Twitter, shocker, They've got tens of thousands of followers. And that account tweeted out, with no evidence, of course, that 50,000 Chinese troops were on the border, the Canadian Maine border. They were ready to invade America. Chinese troops. That's not true. That's not true at all. That's insane. There's not. This is what I mean. This is a Republican Party. They're doing conspiracy theories. Okay, they're using these conspiracy theories in order to, of course, seize power. That's what they're doing. They're scaring the crap out of people. And look, as a result, right? As a result of their reliance on conspiracy theories with no facts, you had over 100 congressional Republicans that signed on to the Texas lawsuit to overturn the election. These are, again, Republican officials. Earlier today, Rand Paul was like, oh, there's so much fraud in this election. Where's your evidence? What's the evidence, Rand Paul? Where is it? Where is it? There's no credible evidence of to back up anything that you are alleging. So I'm sorry, you don't have evidence. That you don't have a case. You can't just go and say these things that are blatantly untrue. But they do so because that is expected of them in the Republican Party. Understand that you had even more Republicans, Republican voters especially, right? But you also have Republican politicians. They want Trump installed for a second term, possibly even longer. Who knows, right? And it seems like they're willing to go to extreme lengths to do so. Or at least talk about going to extreme lengths in order to do so. This is not a political party anymore. This is a conspiracy cult. Driven, of course, by the cult member, Donald Trump. Mitch McConnell and establishment Republicans, I don't think they have any idea what they're dealing with. Any idea of the monster that they have created in order to fuel their pursuit for money and power. And I'm really kind of curious how the Republican Party is going to begin dealing with this. Is it going to get ripped apart at the seams or not? I have no idea. But it's pretty clear that the vast majority of Republican voters, they're in this conspiracy camp now. And I don't see any way of getting them out. Not good. Not good at all. All right. Moving on. So far, coronavirus has killed over 300,000 Americans, and unfortunately will continue to kill many more as the virus continues to spread. So now we do have several vaccines that are available, but they've just been released. Okay, just went through emergency FDA approval, and so getting the vaccine out and inoculating enough people to reach herd immunity, that 70% threshold, is going to take a lot of time. Okay, it's somewhere from 8 to 9 months even. Okay, and that's assuming, of course, most people are going to take it, because there's a lot of questions on whether or not people will actually accept taking the vaccine. So now, that said, it's going to take a lot of time to get through all of this in order to bring an end to the coronavirus pandemic. Now, that is time that members of the Trump administration did not want to spend. In fact, there's a new report from Politico where you have a former top Trump appointee who was caught in the emails urging health officials to adopt herd immunity, but this time without a vaccine. Now, I've talked about this before, okay? But this is especially damning given the language. Okay, so now here's then science advisor Paul Alexander Now, this is somebody who, of course, worked under the Human Health and Human Services Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, Michael Caputo. Here's what he said, quote, "There is no other way. We need to establish herd," meaning herd immunity, "and it only comes about allowing the non-high-risk groups expose themselves to the virus, period. Infants, kids, teens, young people, young adults, middle-aged with no conditions, etc. have zero to little risk." That's not true. "So we use them to develop herd. We want them infected." I mean, there it is. We want to purposely infect them. Sure, because, all the people that he mentioned are 100% segregated from people that are the at-risk populations. Oops, no, they're not. Now, he continues. It may be that it will be best if we open up and flood the zone and let the kids and young folk get infected in order to get natural immunity, natural exposure. So understand what he is pushing. Not only is it non-scientific, it's also incredibly dangerous. And here's the other thing. This ignores the evidence that we have of perfectly healthy people, people with no pre-existing conditions, people that you would think are normal, healthy individuals that would, do very, that would get over the virus, right? Recover from the virus that you would think, okay? These people, a lot of them have ended up getting some very serious symptoms of COVID-19, okay? Some of them that have even developed into lifelong pre-existing conditions, all right? People that are generally considered to be healthy also have died as a result of coronavirus. So, and those that haven't, by the way, they've received organ damage, neurological damage, strokes, heart attacks, etc. And while, some of the more extreme cases are rather rare, you don't know who will be infected and in what ways until people get the virus. And speaking of children, by the way, children have also died as a result of the coronavirus. So this is a monstrous plan, 100%. And by the way, they knew exactly what they were talking about. They knew what they meant, okay? But they didn't care. And the reason, of course, is politics. It's all politics. In fact, Alexander acknowledges back in a May 30th email that a draft statement from the CDC about how COVID-19 was disproportionately affecting minority populations. Now, he said in this email, yes, that is very accurate. It turns out it is disproportionately affecting minority communities. So now, instead of saying, oh, maybe we should do something about that, instead, he's like, ooh, you know what? We should change the messaging on that to make it not look so bad for Donald Trump. In fact, he warned HHS and CDC communications officials that, quote, "In this election cycle, that is the kind of statement coming from CDC that the media and Democrat antagonists will use against the president." And then goes on to say, well, the real problem and the real reason that the minority, that COVID-19 was affecting minority populations the most disproportionately was, because of decades of Democrat neglect. Ah, I see. Gross. Alexander also appeared to acknowledge that the White House's own push to let states wind down COVID-19 restrictions were leading to a spike in cases, which of course makes sense, right? He said that there's a rise in cases due to testing and also simultaneously due to the relaxing of restrictions, less social distancing. Alexander wrote in a July 24th email, "We always knew as you relax and open up, cases will rise." We always knew, but we pushed it anyway. We pushed it and the president pushed it. In fact, the president would go out and say, it's going to go away. It'll be fine. we're just having bigger numbers because of more testing. In fact, it's because of the testing. We're doing phenomenal testing. We're doing tremendous testing. So much testing, your head will spin. In the cases, whenever you do all the testing, it goes up, and nobody can explain that because it's going to disappear, and you're going to be very, very surprised when coronavirus just magically goes away. Believe me. That's what it is. That's what they were doing. That's what they were doing. And so Trump was out there bullshitting, lying his ass off. Well, you had people in the administration knowing exactly what was going to happen, what we were warning about, and saying, that's fine. We don't really care. We don't give a shit. I mean, what they were pushing was going to kill millions of Americans. Do the math. I know the popular thing on conservatives like 98% recovery rate, 99.5, whatever number, because they're throwing out like different numbers constantly. Okay. Do the math though. If this is true, this is around 2 million people that are going to get affected. 2.5, 3 million people that will die as a result. If everybody in the country was exposed, we got herd immunity to 90, 99, 100%, right? Or even 70%, you're still going to see nearly 1 million people or more die as a result of coronavirus. And so understand that that's exactly what they were pushing for. That's what they were doing. And so it's very, very sick. It's disgusting. It's a horrifying plan. Now, as a result, this went viral on social media. People are incredibly outraged as a result. Let me give you some of those responses to it. Tim Fullerton said, most experts think herd immunity with no vaccine would cost about 2.5 million lives. And here's an advisor to the president advocating for millions of Americans to die. Disgusting. And for what? Of course, Donald Trump's political aspirations. Now, just imagine, right, if, Democrats actually allowed, I think we actually did see that with Ebola, right? Except this time, the Obama administration, when that happened, I'm sorry, H1N1, they went and fought to make sure that, as many people were protected from H1N1 as we could. Now, it didn't get to rise to the level of coronavirus, obviously, but we had at least a competent government that responded to this virus and was able to control it. 12,000 Americans were killed, unfortunately, but we're looking at right now over 300,000 Americans that have died as a result of coronavirus, where we had a situation where you could have saved hundreds of thousands of lives if you had actually done the things that you were supposed to do as a federal government. There's more. Quoting the person in the article, Dr. Beth says this: there's no other way. We need to establish herd, and it comes about allowing the non-high-risk groups to expose themselves to the virus, period. No, this is not scientifically accurate. And did anyone bother to look at any other country to see how we could address COVID-19? Oh, you mean the other countries that are actually doing a lot better? Huh. I mean, look, there's a new outbreak in Germany, right? So now you look at that, and what are they doing? They're doing targeted lockdowns. A lot better than what we're doing here. You look at Australia, specifically there's a certain state in Australia, I forget the name of it, that's actually doing very, very well. They've had no cases. You've had New Zealand that basically has no cases. And so you look at some of these other countries and what they've done, and they've been a lot more successful, whereas America, we have the highest amount of cases, highest amount of deaths. I mean, it's just, and it's because of this. As Max Tanny points out, this seemingly has been the strategy for months, but putting "we want them infected" in writing is still devastating to see. It's true. Very, very true. And again, it's all for politics and, of course, for businesses, right? So corporations can continue to make money, and the president can get reelected on his quote-unquote good economic record. That's what they want. Again, that's why they wanted more people infected. And by the way, without healthcare, we don't have universal healthcare in this country. And yet, the unofficial official policy of the Republican Party, of the Trump administration, was we want them infected. And that, by the way, explains why there was no other stimulus measures being offered by Republicans up until now, basically. Because their focus was on corporate liability and immunity for COVID lawsuits. I mean, it all goes hand in hand, right? So you pursue herd immunity, and then you prevent people who get sick from being able to sue their employer for, if they get sick because their employer didn't actually care about protecting it. It's too expensive, too onerous. Oh, wonderful. And it's especially monstrous, by the way, to think about that kind of policy, knowing people that have had the virus and knowing what it's actually like to have the virus. For one, you can't breathe. It's a respiratory virus. All right. You're drained. You can't focus. There's neurological issues. There's that brain fog that goes along with it. You can essentially barely function in a lot of cases. And that's not even counting the COVID long haulers who deal with these symptoms for months at a time and continue to have to spend all this time trying to fight it. I mean, it's horrible. So no, the people that are pushing this, they need to be held accountable. They really do. Now, thankfully, we didn't get to the crisis that they were pushing, okay? And that's as a result of some smart governors in a lot of states. I mean, you had them that push back, Michigan, for example, and Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Look, I was not a huge proponent of Gretchen Whitmer. I remember supporting her primary opponent, Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed. Now, Dr. Al-Sayed is in favor of Whitmer's coronavirus response, as are most smart people, okay? Because they actually did the right things to protect people. But also understand that as a result of this, of the government's actions, their official, unofficial policy, right? Of saying, let's get everybody infected. You had the state governments that were now literally also having to fight against the federal government, who through their inaction was allowing coronavirus to continue to spread. And so if that's not evil and broken, I don't know what is. And it's just more example, another example, I should say, of just the brokenness and immorality of the Republican Party. It's a disaster. All right. I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back. We have, of course, more stuff related to COVID and politics, because we're not done with that. And then I'm going to go trash Biden. So, a little bit. Stay right here. Round the Nation. We'll be right back in a few minutes.
Tighten up my meat.
There's some whores in this house. Wet ass P word.
Welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here, Waldorf Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you today. All right, so before I get back into the show, I do want to thank some channel members as well as some patrons and read a couple super chats. Much appreciated to those of you who, of course, donate and help the show through all of those different means. So I want to thank channel members Adam Prawl, and That's Not Funny. I just love that name. That's not funny. That's so good. All right, anyway. Going over to Patreon, I want to thank Mark Bass and Ormond S. So thank you to those patrons. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Let's go over here to the super chats. Pull those up. Dango Bango says, last weekend, Fox News talked about the laptop. Oh my God, the laptop. It's the laptop. The all-important Hunter Biden laptop. It's back. It's back. Fun times. All right. James Williams says, in New Zealand, just over 2,000 cases and only 25 deaths. It's amazing what you can get when you have competent government that the people actually voted for. Even the Nationals, the Kiwi Republicans, took this pandemic seriously overall. Well, again, remember, your Republicans are basically our Democrats. I mean, the Overton window is so broken here in this country. It's insane. All right, anyway. God damn. All right. So thank you for those super chats, by the way. If you want to help the show, you can also and get your messages read. That's the way to do it. Let's hop over to Twitch here. Oh, Dango Bango again says France sues Paris mayor for hiring too many women. I'm gonna have to look into that. That seems a strange story. All right. That said, thanks for all the new follows, of course, on Twitch. You can help us out by becoming a subscriber as well. So I'm glad that we're growing on the different platforms. It's pretty awesome to see. Is it snowing? Is it snowing where we're at? No. It's not snowing where we're at, but it has snowed, and I will be needing to pick up some salt very soon. It's gonna get salty up in here. So everybody, by the way, be careful in the Northeast. It's gonna get a little dangerous. So moving on, let's get into the show. There we go. There's a new report out in the New York Times which describes the lengths the Trump administration went to try to play politics with coronavirus. Now, in the interviews with the New York Times, there's a former CDC chief of staff, Kyle McGowan, and his deputy, Amanda Campbell, who detailed how multiple White House officials who had zero expertise in public health, shocker, would regularly order changes to the CDC's pandemic protocols. So now, again, this is while coronavirus has been raging across the country, killing over 300,000 Americans. You had, at least in the lead up to that, people like Ivanka Trump and Kellyanne Conway saying, ooh, no, I don't like that. That makes Trump look bad. So we're going to have to change that. We're going to have to edit that. We're going to have to scrub that, okay? Because that looks bad for Trump. So now those changes, as I mentioned, they would be often motivated by political, by basically political considerations in order to help Donald Trump's re-election chances. In fact, here's part of the article. Mr. McGowan and Ms. Campbell mediated between CDC Director Robert Redfield and agency scientists when the White House requests and dictates would arrive. Edits from Kellyanne Conway, former White House advisor, on choirs and communion in faith communities, or suggestions from Ivanka Trump, the president's daughter and aide, on schools, reports the Times. According to McGowan, the CDC routinely watered down its guidance under pressure from the Trump political team. In fact, he told the Times, quote, "Every time that the science clashed with the messaging, messaging won." Oh, I know, shocker, right? That you have an administration that puts messaging over science, that ignores science. Again, this is the same administration that, you know, says, headed by the president, that says windmills cause cancer. You've got the windmills and they spin around and they go and they give you cancer. No, that's not true at all. The same person that would, you know, argued about the path of a hurricane and tried to draw Sharpie and to change its course in order to go against the scientists. So they hate science. They can't stand it. And so they're doing political propaganda, changing the science, especially when it comes to the pandemic, which of course is, it's super unpopular of a position to take in order to fight the pandemic in the way that they were supposed to. And so there's more examples of this, by the way. Mr. McGowan recalled the White House fixated on the economic implications of public health measures. He and Dr. Robert Redfield, the CDC director, had negotiated with Russell T. Vogt, the White House budget director, over social distancing guidelines for restaurants. Mr. Vogt argued that specific spacing recommendations, 6 feet, right, would be too onerous for businesses to enforce. Now, look, I haven't dined in. You wouldn't catch me dining in a restaurant at all at this point, right? There's no way in hell I'm going to dine in a restaurant. And so the spacing requirements, for me, seem like moot. It seems like a really dumb thing to do, to go and eat in at a restaurant, especially since, you take your mask off to eat. And that kind of like eliminates the efficacy of a mask. If you're, but anyway, it's so stupid, right? But nonetheless, they're like, okay, let's try to at least open things up like halfway, right? With a 50% occupancy. To at least try to reduce coronavirus while still making people who, really, really want to go to the fucking Applebee's and eat, and have somebody come serve them instead of doing carside pickup, we're going to make those people happy. We're going to bend to the Republican conservative mob that thinks that it's their right to go eat at a restaurant, even in the middle of a pandemic. And by the way, those people are often piss poor tippers and try to get the servers to remove their masks in order to figure out how much to tip them. I mean, these are gross people, right? But nonetheless, they tried to make some, at least some sort of rules to try to prevent those same people from getting coronavirus and ending up in the hospital, taking up valuable hospital space. All right. And so when they tried to do that, and they tried to enforce a 6-foot rule, or at least to write it in the CDC recommendations, you had these economic people, political appointees saying, nope, businesses, they're not going to want to do that. Too onerous. I don't think it's that onerous. 6 feet, motherfucker. 6 feet. That's not that hard. Nope, still too hard for them. So there's more, right? So Mr. McGowan, in response to this, he said this: it is not the CDC's role to determine the economic viability of a guidance document. I love that response because it's 100% true. Despite that, they ended up compromising anyway and recommending social distancing without actually putting in like a 6-foot measurement. Again, they bow down backwards for these people. As for Ms. Campbell, one of her responsibilities was helping secure approval for the agency's morbidity and mortality weekly report. You would think that there was something like that would be kind of super important, especially like when it comes to accurately tracking the people affected by coronavirus. And it's usually a very non-political resource that is used by the government in order to make policy decisions. Of course, under Trump, that unfortunately became incredibly political. In fact, here's what the Times says. Over the summer, political appointees at the health department repeatedly asked CDC officials to revise, delay, and even scuttle drafts that they thought could be viewed by implication as criticism of President Trump. And we, of course, know that Donald Trump has an incredibly thin skin, so anything that could be viewed as even a tiny little bit of criticism can't have it. It's really gonna make Donald Trump feel bad. It's gonna give him the feels, and he's gonna get very, very upset. We cannot upset the baby, so we must change this. Sad, sad, man. And look, there are some ways that it got even more absurd. In fact, in the spring, CDC published an app that allowed Americans to screen themselves for symptoms of coronavirus, right? The Trump administration ended up going with a tool with Apple, developed by Apple. White House officials then demanded that the CDC remove the app off its website because, well, I mean, we already had Apple make one. Why do we need another one made by our own CDC? It's just ridiculous. In the end, of course, the interference from the White House got in the way of actually doing things, you know, that we're supposed to do. In fact, here's what Ms. Campbell said. She's like, look, at the pandemic's outset, I was confident the agency had the best scientists in the world at its disposal, just like we had in the past. So we can handle this. We got this. We got this coronavirus thing. Just get out of the way and let us do our job. Unfortunately, she added, what was so different, though, than last time, for example, during the Obama administration, was the political involvement, not only from HHS, but then the White House, ultimately, that in so many ways hampered what our scientists were able to do. Because, of course, and you know the reason for that, it's because they don't care about the science. What they wanted to do was to open up the country, open up the businesses, get back to normal. Now, you might ask, well, what's wrong with that? We all want to open up. We all want to get back to normal, right? Well, the problem is we're not ready to get back to normal. We have a virus that is still going around that has killed over 300,000 plus Americans. We can't pretend to go back to normal while this is happening, even though there are 2 now vaccines out that have been, put into emergency authorization by the FDA. It's still going to take months in order to get them out to as many people as need them, okay? And so if you continue to do what you're doing and opening it up, then people are going to die. Lots and lots of people are going to die. And unfortunately, that was their unofficial position. And so, again, you have emails where there's somebody high up in the administration who said, we want them to be infected. We want to push a herd immunity strategy. And herd immunity without a vaccine, well, that's it. It's gonna lead to a lot of people, even in the millions, dying. But they wanted to do it to protect corporations and, more importantly, get Donald Trump reelected. Now, understand that if we didn't have people in the Democratic Party, as flawed as it is, and trust me, I am a huge critic of the Democrats. I don't even like the Democratic Party most of the time. But they did fight to give people some sort of relief. Was it enough? Obviously not. But they at least fought for something. And then they also, to my surprise, did fight against the corporate liability provision. That was, in many ways, a non-starter. Even the terrible bipartisan compromise bill that is currently being negotiated in the House, in the Senate, right? That corporate liability provision ended up getting stripped out, as well as, unfortunately, aid to the states, which is what Democrats were asking for. And so, at least that provision is stripped out so that people, if they do get sick because or as a result of corporate negligence in protecting their own employees, at least we'll be able to sue. And so if we didn't have at least the Democratic Party that was fighting against this stuff, we would have more dead, maybe even over 1 million. The parties are not the same. I mean, yes, they serve the corporations, obviously, they both do. They absolutely service the corporations. But one party happens to draw the line at mass murder, The other one doesn't seem to do so, seems to encourage people going out and spreading a deadly virus to each other. And by the way, that same party routinely meddled, put out misinformation, disinformation to further their own political goals, while blocking every bit of aid that the other side did try to push. And the other side did try to push aid. Again, was it enough? No. But it was absolutely more than what the other side was trying to give. And understand that we live in a broken country. This is what a broken country does. Okay? And that is held hostage to some of the worst kinds of people. Never, ever should we let the Republicans forget what they have done, nor should we let them get away with it. So, all right. All right, moving in. Now I'm going to criticize the Democrats. Because of course. It appears that Joe Biden might be looking at putting a Republican in his cabinet. Oh, here we go. Now, this is according to Axios. Biden's team is debating the political upside of an across-the-aisle pick, according to people familiar with the matter. Let me just solve that one for you all for y'all right now. There's no political upside. None. In fact, there's no upside at all. Why would you put a Republican in the cabinet? That is a ridiculous idea. But anyway, no, the good news is it's not set in stone. He could still go with a fully Democratic cabinet. And by the way, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing either. ATN is a Democrat. She ain't no good in the cabinet. Pete Buttigieg, Democrat, not good in the cabinet, okay? As transportation secretary. So a lot of his cabinet picks are just garbage, neoliberal trash. Nonetheless, they're not Republicans at this point, which would be basically the only step worse. Anyway, and so Biden has expressed interest, according to the report, in using a pick to reach across the aisle in a way to signal red state Americans that he understands their concerns and plans to address them. Hey, you know what could really address some of those concerns? Increase wages, do a $15 minimum wage, which could actually happen in this, and guarantee health care through Medicare for all. Well, that would address, because again, you have even a sizable amount of Republicans that think the current healthcare system is a disaster and would be open to opening up Medicare for all, for everybody. So, imagine if we actually did that. That would be great. Fantastic. Because those things are actually popular with the majority of Americans. Now, is Joe Biden going to do that? No. Of course not. No. He's actually looking at putting in a possible Meg Whitman type of Republican. And so, not only is Biden looking to reach out with the Republican Commerce Secretary, because that's the position that she's looking at, right? But one that is actually hated by Republican voters, which is the biggest irony here. And so, as the article notes, some possible Republican picks like Whitman, the former Hewlett-Packard CEO, are considered rhinos or traitors by the new Republican base. Well, then what's the point? Honestly. So you say, oh, I'm going to reach out to Republicans by picking a Republican to be my Commerce Secretary, who, by the way, is basically the quote-unquote ambassador to the business world, right? So obviously, you're picking somebody who's pro-corporate, who is going to be in favor of the corporations as Commerce Secretary. Let's be honest about that. That the Republican base hates. What's the point? There is no point except for this. Political cover. So this is something that us progressives have been warning up for quite some time, right? So now, and it's also in relation to the Georgia race, right? So the thing is that if they lose the Georgia race and Republicans retain the Senate, that gives them political cover to not do anything progressive. despite pressure from the base. Oh, sorry, it's Republicans, can't do it. Same thing with putting in a Commerce Secretary that is a Republican. Oh, would love to do progressive things, can't do it. We got a Republican in the cabinet. She's not going to let it go. It's going to hurt the business community too much. Ah, sad. And so, look, I mean, the whole thing is like, from Biden and these centrist Republicans, or I'm sorry, centrist Democrats, that's a Freudian slip, but not really, is they think, well, we got to think about the Republicans. What are the Republicans going to think? I mean, yes, our policy, progressive policies, would actually do really good for even Republican voters, but we're not going to do it because it mildly inconveniences the donors who will only make an extra few million, or would lose that extra few million on top of the billions that they're already making. So sorry, we can't do it, but we are reaching out to Republican voters who, by the way, hate our guts. See, that is why you never see, by the way, a Democrat being chosen by a Republican to be in the cabinet. You don't see that anymore, okay? And if you ever did, it would be somebody from the establishment who would be like a centrist blue dog Democrat going into a Republican administration because they happen to be aligned on most issues, at least economic issues. So then what would the gain be, right? Well, there is no gain. None. There's no reason to do it. Which is why, aside from short-term favorable media coverage, because the media, understand that the media loves this shit. They have an orgasm every time that somebody utters the phrase bipartisan compromise. Like, oh, yes. Oh, bipartisan compromise. Oh, I love it. Even though that compromise, more often than not, shafts regular people in favor of corporations. Okay? They still love it because they're disconnected from the average person. And now, thankfully though, there are some Biden confidants that are unconvinced that there is a long-term benefit from selecting a Republican. That's the most credit that you can give them. Why? Because, well, I mean, I don't understand why you would think that the Republican Party is a party that you can compromise with, that you can actually have a conversation with. Politically, Republican voters, for the most part, don't even believe that Biden won the election. They think that he stole it. Seriously. You're not going to get any of those people. You're not going to get goodwill you're not going to be the president of all of America. You're not going to heal the nation when you have over half of all Republicans. And even some polls going into the lower 80s that believe that Trump still won the election, actually won this election, and that Biden had cheated and stole the election through massive voter and electoral fraud, and that they believe Biden, is going to institute gay marriage, forced gay marriage for everybody, and then is going to go and steal your child's adrenochrome. Okay, that's not a thing that's happening, but they believe it. They believe it. There are people that believe that there's 50,000 Chinese troops on the border just waiting for Joe Biden to let them in to go take over the country. These people are insane. Insane. Joe Biden could elect Jesus or appoint Jesus Christ himself. And these voters would be like, we hate Jesus now. He's a socialist. They'd still call him a communist. You can't reason with some of these people, okay? And by the way, the Republican Party, as a result of the insanity of the base, which has kind of like been like a one feeds into the other, and it's like been just vicious cycle of insanity, will not work on anything. They will work to obstruct anything but either basic governments or corporate welfare. And so they will keep the government open, prevent it from shutting down because it's politically disastrous, and they will continue to fund the Pentagon, as they always, both Republicans and Democrats, always come together to feed the military industrial complex, to feed the beast. And that's the only thing that they do. And so you've got no infrastructure bill that's going to come. You've got no healthcare proposal. That's not going to get past them. Stimulus. Right now, we're talking about stimulus that is a whopping $600 at the expense of unemployment benefits. One time, not $600 a week, Not $600 a month. One $600 check for every American. Half of what we received, which wasn't enough before. Get out of here. Garbage. Garbage. Congratulations, Democrats. Well done. This is what's in store with centrist rule under the corporate Democrats, as well as the Republican Party. So what we need to do is need to actually get involved in primaries and continue to build a leftist movement, build the squad. I know there are some people that are a little angry at the squad. I get it. But generally, they have actually done a lot more good. And they've been especially at getting out the progressive message. And so we need to build on that. And we need to make them powerful in the House and the Senate. Only then will we actually have a chance at actually passing Medicare for All and getting things signed. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I do want to thank the people for following me on Twitch as well. Much, much appreciated. Some of the new follows. You all are amazing. Let's go over here and see if we have any super chats to read before we go. Any donos? Nope, but you can help out by doing that. Joe Biden will veto Medicare for All. I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm talking about later on when we actually get a progressive president. That's going to be a while. Understand, you got to be in this fight for the long haul. This is not going to happen. The next cycle might not even happen the following cycle. We are out in the progressives are out in the woods. We have no power. We have no real power, and we have to build that if we're going to get what we want. So, all right. So all those people who lost their jobs / insurance will have to wait. Yeah. Yeah, we'll never get a progressive president. Moneyed interest will never allow it. Then you get rid of the moneyed interests. Whatever you can, however you can. All right, anyway. I gotta go. Thank you all. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Share our videos out. I think one of you asked how we can get the Ben Shapiro thing to go viral. Share and share. Just keep sharing it. That's all that helps. That's how you can do it. So other than that, there's not a whole lot I can do. The algorithm is picky, friends, for sure. But anyway, love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night. We'll see you all later.
Oh, wow, I'm sorry. Please clap.
I will eat your ass.
I like my meat tight.
Tighten up my meat.
Mike Pounds.
Amazing.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.